Hello and welcome to the After Action Review video podcast. I'm Coach Latham. I'm the founder of Empowering Life Changes, my life coaching company. You can find more resources and booking information at www.empoweringlifechanges.net. For daily affirmations, follow me on all social media platforms at Coach Latham_PhD. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode.
All right, hello. So this is going to be the episode on self-rejection that I was discussing. And in a moment, I've got a special guest that I'm going to bring up. First, I want to start out by building up a little bit of backstory about what self-rejection is and how it kind of plays out in our lives. So self-rejection can be best thought of as a form of self-sabotage, and it usually centers around us telling ourselves that we are not good enough. So this type of thinking, it might start out when we reminisce about a time that we failed at something, or if we think about a time when we tried to do something and somebody told us that we weren't good enough, right? They told us that that's not going to happen for you. You don't have the skills for that. You're not smart enough to do that. And so self-rejection, right? It's a form of self-sabotage and limiting beliefs. And often we're not even the creators, right, of our own self-rejection. People are projecting their thoughts onto us, their limiting beliefs. They're projecting it onto us. So that comes from our caregivers and our role models. And then we have to grow up and we have to ask ourselves, okay, so how does self-rejection play out in my life? Well, often it's when we decide to quit while we're ahead, right? So we start doing something and it's like, man, I don't even know if this is really going to work out for me. And so you decide to give up in that uncomfortable time frame and go back to what is familiar, even if what is familiar may not be comfortable. So the other thing is that you might decide that you don't even want to start something, right? Because nothing good ever happens for you anyway. So you're always in this state of suspense while you're waiting for the shoe to drop. And so you're never starting new things, right? So you just keep reliving the same cycles, going through the same experiences, because you're afraid that if you step into this space of uncertainty, that it's not going to work out for you anyway. The other thing is that you might honestly believe that you aren't worthy of the good things that could be happening in your life, right? There's always some good that is happening for us. But when you start to go down this road of these limited beliefs and practicing self-rejection, you're not able to see that good stuff as it's happening, right? It's so hard to see the forest beyond the trees, is kind of the way that they say it. So what we're going to talk about today is how we can tap into our positive thoughts, our positive affirmations to get us out of this, this negative cycle. So once we start tapping into this negative thinking cycle, right, it becomes so easy to give up and to shy away from challenges. And life and all of its various lessons, it really shows us time and time again that we receive what we attract. So if we're hoping for good and bountiful blessings, we got to be in that mindset. We have to be practicing those habits. If we aren't, we'll start living out the actions that come along with self-sabotage and self-rejection. So we have to be in alignment with the things that we're looking for, right? So then how these things affect us. So for myself, I've always said that I'll never talk myself out of something. Whoever is in charge of the hiring or selection process, I've always said that person's going to have to tell me no. They're going to have to tell me I didn't get the job. I didn't get the position. Whatever it is I was trying to get after, I was going to have to fail at it. I never want to talk myself out of something. And I've always meant that. So this is regardless of whether or not you are a risk taker or you've experienced some form of external rejection. And external rejection, right? It's coming from outside of our body, right? So it's maybe you try to give somebody a gift, right? And you had an idea of how they would react when they accepted it, but that's not how that played out. Or maybe you expected a discussion to go a different way, and it didn't play out the way you thought. Or maybe you try to shoot your shot and it didn't work out for you. So the external rejection that we experience, it can change the way that we view ourselves and cause us to second guess ourselves in the future. So I recently learned this new term called paralysis by analysis. And it means that after we've thought about doing something, we start analyzing the risk, the reward, what our current skill set is. We start dwelling on our past failures and the potential for future regrets. And when this happens, we get stuck in the analysis phase. And so we never move into action. So, the goal of today's episode is to help you understand how self rejection shows up, how it affects our decision making, and how we can overcome it. And so, without further ado, I want to introduce my boy Keith from Keith Chronicles. We are going to be doing another collaborative episode.
What's up, friend? How are you doing?
What's up? Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year. Look, I was going to wear my hat, but I didn't want to give nobody a seizure because the thing be flashing. So, I do that. But, yep, go on, my friend. I'm loving everything that you're saying so far, so don't let me interrupt. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, so actually, Keith, now would be a good time for you to introduce yourself. Because this as I was thinking about this yesterday, this episode would be really good to talk about starting your YouTube channel, right?
Ooh,
I'm pretty sure there were a lot of doubts along the way. And even as you were moving through the process, there are probably times where you had to like wind yourself back up and be like,
yes,
yo, listen, like I still got this. It's going to work out.
yes.
So let's start with that. So let's talk about Keith Chronicles.
All right, so first off, my name is Keith from the Keith Chronicles. Make sure y'all
That's
check
right.
me out on YouTube, Instagram, anything. My name pretty much on everything is Keith Wayne __. But as far as the self-doubt goes, one thing I will say is the self-doubt for me prolonged me even wanting to start the YouTube channel. It was always a thing where it's like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. But I was already rejecting myself before everybody else got a chance to do it, which is why I'm always say like I'm so mad that I allowed my own paranoia to hinder my growth, because I feel like had I started 2 years before 2 years ago, I'd be in a way bigger place. And I really just kind of had to tell myself, like, just get out there and do it, and then whatever happens, happens. And I'm not gonna lie to you. I know you said that there are times throughout the journey where you feel as if you just want to give up. That's every night. I'm not playing with it. I get up sometimes and I'll tell myself, Keith, and this is me breaking fourth wall. I'll be like, Keith, you have to keep pushing. Like you have to. Like you have to. Because for me at this point, now that the rejection part about this is out of the way, now I can't let everybody see me fail because I done gave up. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much the journey, because if you start your channel or whatever business venture, anything that you start, and you expect everybody to support you from the very, very, very beginning,
yes,
you're setting yourself up for failure. And I think that is part of the reason that discourages you throughout the process, is because you're not getting the support from people that you would expect to get it from. But you just got to keep knowing what your purpose is and pushing through it. And I'm off my soapbox.
No, but yeah, that's so true. Especially when it's really easy to go to somebody else's page, right, and to look for motivational or information or something that is going to keep you disciplined. But when you are that content creator, and you behind the driver's seat, right, it's like stressful because you got to keep coming up with the content. You responding to DMs, and then you also inside your own head, and you spend a lot of time thinking like, is this the best that I can produce?
Let's not forget the editing time.
Yes. Yeah. So that right there, because this is a full-time job when you're trying to like add it into everything else that's going on. And like, it's one of those things where you reap the benefits on the back end, because it's such a slow process to build. And so there are a lot of moments where you just kind of like, I could shut this all down and go back to my life, you know. So good for you though for
every
keeping
day.
up and pressing on. Like that's so impressive, right?
I
Because
appreciate that.
yeah, you building your story, you're sharing your platform, and as we've seen in your previous interviews, you're starting to branch out, and you're watching yourself grow. So it's literally like planting yourself and also nourishing yourself. So you're your own gardener. So that's how I try to think
Seed
of
you sow will grow. And I'm not gonna
it.
lie, there's been a lot of trial and error. Um,
hmm
and
hmm
another big thing about staying like just keeping going as far as that goes is the numbers will make you
hmm
be in your bed crying at night. Really, if you really focus on those numbers, you're gonna be like, they hate me, or just whatever. So, but you do have to pay attention to your audience, and you do have to let them
hmm
know. You have to let them tell you what they want to see from you, but don't
hmm
ever let your audience deter you away from your own integrity, morality, and stuff like that, so they can be entertained. Because there's plenty of other people they can go watch
hmm
if they want to see
Yeah.
some crazy stuff. I'm just saying. But
Yeah, because you're really trying to build a community,
yep.
and that's how you get that consistent engagement.
Hmm.
So, with that, we're going to hop into the topic for the show.
Let's do it.
Um, so, one of the first ways that we experience self rejection happens as a kid. Hold on, Siri almost cut on just now. So, one of the first ways that we experience self rejection is as a kid, usually, right? It's from our caregivers, our role models. And I always say caregivers because everybody's not raised by their parents. It could be aunts, uncles, you could have a nanny, grandparents, usually in the Black community, do most of the child rearing, or it could be like the mothers at the church. So I always say caregivers. So I've got a few ways that this shows up, right? So as a child, your feelings were invalidated. And
Hmm.
this shows up as caregivers not making you feel safe in expressing yourself. If you do express yourself, it's seen as being disrespectful. Caregivers don't apologize to you when they're wrong. Our caregivers did not protect you from harm, or you did not learn how to expand on describing your emotions. And that last one, once we get through more of the discussion, I'm going to circle back to this last one about describing our emotions and how that impacts us as we start trying to create and maintain lasting relationships. So, I know what I experienced growing up was not feeling safe to express myself. Um, my parents didn't apologize when they were wrong, even if we got whoopings. And then they came out later that we were being honest when we were like, no, I didn't do that. We just got food. uh, and
Place to
yeah,
lay your head.
yeah.
Like that's your apology right there. You got a place to sleep.
Yeah. And then your expressing yourself was seen as disrespectful. So and I always say like now when I see people with kids or like my nephew and stuff, they are just a little person with feelings and emotions and stuff, right? Because
Yep.
they are. So while there is a place for child rearing and being a disciplinarian, it's also important to hear them and see them, for the personality that they have and they present. So, what are some of your experience, or what are your thoughts on that, Keith?
So I was still listening, and I apologize. I just had to get my lighting right. All right, but so I actually have. Ooh, okay, so look, I don't want to target one particular group of people, but I
Mhm,
want to say, Black women, please, when your child, that's a son, toddler, kid, when he's crying, quit telling him that he's crying like some little girl,
mhm,
because you don't understand how that affects us growing up. Because then at that point, I'm not gonna lie to you now, like if I cry or like it's almost like I apologize because I'm feeling a certain type of way. I'm like, oh, excuse me, like I don't even want you to see me like this. Like it's almost embarrassing. And I feel like that in a sense is the catalyst for why some of us do start to not know how to express ourselves because we can't be emotional and we don't have a safe place to be emotional a lot of time. And I'm not saying that's all Black women. I'm definitely not saying that, but I'm just saying based off how I was raised in my Black household, you quit crying like some little girl, period. And those are not things that people apologize for. Just like you did say, it's almost a form of bullying. You know what I'm saying? And it took me a little bit to kind of get that because I grew up getting ass whoopings and I'm still like, whoop his ass. But to me, there needs to be a reason behind it and it needs to be a substantial reason behind it. It doesn't need to be a reason why, like, if you discipline your child, they let them know why they're being disciplined. Don't say, because I told you so, or because that is still hindering their emotional development because they don't even know what's going on. You know what I'm saying? They just think that they are being abused, and which sometimes be the case. But you're not going to get those apologies. I have things that I'll bring up to this day, and my mom will be like, boy, that was, shut up. And, and they don't really get that. I feel like I'm hoping that although I think this next generation is doomed, I'm hoping that our generation and the generation below us really start to understand, because I am starting to see a big increase of people being aware of emotional intelligence. And I really hope that trickles down to the mothers and the fathers and stuff when it comes to their children, because they don't even realize just by them not apologizing or just by them being a little aggressive or just by them not showing up, that really affects you. Yeah. It really does. My self-rejection started, like, honestly, I always thought my mom liked my sister more than she liked me because she my sister was always with my mom. There's about 10 of us on my daddy's side, and my daddy was never around, but then he has a 10, 11-year-old who lives with them. And so he starts to be like, okay, well, is something wrong with me? Why paying attention to me? And then you listen off my soapbox. Was there another question? I'm sorry. I told you.
No, man. I mean, you find so what you brought up is a lot of really good stuff. So let's break some of it down. So the first part here is our caregivers, right? Limiting the range of emotions that we can portray. Yeah. So you can cry at funerals, or you can cry if you get hurt, something like that, right? But you can't cry too long. Yep. Because there's this concept, there's a time frame for crying. And then you can be angry, but you can't be angry at me, and don't show me that you're angry at me, because then I'll give you something to cry about. But also don't be crying, and then you can be happy, right? But your happiness has to be presented in a masculine way if you are a boy, or a feminine way if you are a girl. So there are all of these limitations that get put on how we get to show up. And when you have that, as you start going through adolescence and then hitting your teenage years, that really does continue to play out, because you spend, most of us spend 15, 16 years with our parents. So yeah, I think that's like 15 or 16 years of damaging psychological behaviors that become ingrained in you. And then you think, okay, for all intents and purposes, I'm 18, I'm an adult. I'm going to go out here into the world and I'm going to start living. And you start getting into relationships, and you don't recognize that you are now projecting the same things that your parents did to you onto your partner.
Yes.
And so it's like this really vicious cycle that
I have a
perpetuates
really
itself.
example of that, actually.
Let's hear it.
And it's kind of stupid, but okay, so listen. I don't know. This is probably something really feminine in me that I got to get out of. I have no clue. But I think growing up, I would see my mom in pretty toxic relationships and stuff like that. But I remember she had one long-term boyfriend that, we all lived, we was like a family, we lived together and stuff like that. And I feel like I just remember every time that they would argue, like if we was in the car or like, something like that, she'd be like, I'm getting out and I just can't. And she would just like try to get out of the car. Well, not while it was moving, but like at a stop, or it would be like, well, get your shit and get out, or it was almost like an ultimatum kind of thing, which I didn't realize was a form of mental abuse or emotional abuse. And I actually kind of went into that into my adulthood. So a lot of times, like in my relationships, like hell, I done easily broke up with all my boyfriends 100 times. But like that's not because I really want to break up with them. It's just like I feel like the only way I can get what I want from you is if I say do this or get your ass out. And so I had to recognize that I picked that up, not even realizing I was picking that up as a kid. And that's part of be mindful of what y'all do in front of your children, for real, period. Because y'all don't realize, I remember, listen, my younger sister is 2 years and 10 months younger than me. I remember her being born. I remember being in the hospital watching her be born. So if I was 2 years old and 10 months, and I remember that, y'all need to be way more conscious of doing stuff in front of y'all small kids, because I remember stuff from 3 years old, and y'all think, oh, well, he ain't gonna remember that. You don't know that.
Well, because those are traumatic events, right? You're hearing all this yelling going back and forth. If they engage in like physical contact and stuff, you're seeing all that, and it's like your brain is like taking pictures.
Yep.
And so I remember like growing up with my mom, and the relationship that she was in, not feeling like it was safe to talk, so like whispering and stuff, or like sneaking food. It was like a crazy time, like in my life. When I think back on it now, and of course, what I know now, and the things that I will and won't accept, it's crazy to think that we had to experience that to get to this point. The other thing that you talked about was like the lack of apology that we get from usually from our parents, but mainly like people who have authority over us, right? Because to apologize, you have to take accountability for what you did. And to do that, you have to be able to say, I was wrong. And it's so hard for a lot of people, especially mainly for parents, because and I guess they kind of feel like they're lowering themselves to the level of the child by saying,
it's crazy, because I'll watch Rebecca say, I am so sorry, John. I will watch like a white mother apologize to her kids all day long. I'm sorry to even say that, but it's so toxic, and some of that stuff needs to be unlearned, period. Like, okay, go
ahead. Yeah, so I mean that's the purpose of us hashing everything out and going through this process, because we all have shared experiences in different ways. And so that's one of the good things about this episode is everybody experiences self-rejection in some way or another. Some people experience it in having like a true fear of going to the gym because I don't know how to use the equipment. I've never been to the gym. People are going to make fun of me for going. But the crazy thing about that is nobody goes to the gym with an amazing body to start.
Nobody.
Right. You got to start building that up. Like there was never a great writer that just wrote an entire novel and was a distinguished writer. No, they had to write a bunch of crappy first drafts to get to that point. And just like how we started out talking about creating the YouTube channel, it's like even today, like we still had technical difficulties, we had delays, right? And so these things continue to show up in our lives, but you learn how to maneuver through them and they don't stress you out as much because, oh, I already dealt with that before, you know. So.
I'll be stressed. I don't know what you're talking about. I can that on me. Now he's a life coach. He knows how to maneuver himself through those unstressful situations. But I'm sure before we got on here, he heard me say about 100 cuss words in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm like, Keith, it's fine. It's gonna work out.
I'll be distraught. Yeah, I need him in my life. Understand that.
All right. So the second way the self-rejection shows up is you don't believe you're worthy of good things. And so I have 3 prompts here. And so what this means is when good things happen, you're waiting for the shoe to drop. If you've never heard this before, it's like sometimes people say it's like you waiting to find a smoking gun. So basically, this really plays out most of the times in like relationships, or if you were going on a job interview, and you're waiting to find something bad. Like, oh, you've been dating this person, but all my past relationships always included infidelity or domestic violence or abandonment. And so I'm just waiting for you to leave. Well, why are you putting yourself through this stress time and time again? Like, what if this person has no intention on leaving you?
Do you
But
manifest reality?
yeah, yeah. And then you start treating them as if they're going to leave, which makes them leave. And then you feel like, oh, well, see, look, the prophecy was fulfilled. No, it was self-fulfilling. You created that space for them to want to leave. So the other 2 things are abandonment issues, which we're going to really dig into that. And then you prefer familiarity over comfort. And we're going to dig into that one because that keeps a lot of people grounded in really bad situations, where it's actually worse than what they might have to do in order to create change. So, which one do you want to tackle first?
So, as far as the first one goes, where you were stating, where we almost have what we were referring to the manifested reality or the self-fulfilling prophecy. I kind of have a different approach to it, but in the same way. It's kind of weird, but I think just maybe being rejected so much throughout life or being let down so much throughout life, I don't have high expectations of things. Like for me, like I go into things with no expectation. That way, whatever happens is a plus, if that makes sense.
So it's kind of like, it's almost like you're protecting yourself by not having expectations.
Like,
so
I don't want to get too excited and then it let me down and then I'm like down in the dump. So I just kind of go in like, if it
does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah, like I'm like the type of person, like if I'm scratching off, if I'm doing a lottery ticket, like scratching off a scratch off, I don't go into it like I'm a win. I got this. I go into it thinking I ain't about to win nothing. Like it's about to be some bullshit. Like whatever.
Okay, so let's pause right there.
Yeah.
So if we have that mindset, then how do we give 110%? Because you have to reserve a little bit of yourself because you're expecting it not to work out. So you like.
Well, no, not necessarily. When I'm scratching that scratch off, I'm like, man, this is some bullshit. But in the back of my head, I'm thinking like, you better win something. But like, it's more so like if I'm thinking like, oh, you ain't about to win nothing, and then I win $5, I'm like, it's literally just more like, it just builds up my excitement. That's more so like the kid who's waiting on his daddy and really excited, but daddy don't never pull up, and so you just be like, and so me, I'll just be like, he ain't about to come. And then when he does come, I'll be like, ooh, stuff like that. But I definitely won't. I don't feel like I approach relationships or friendships or anything with past stuff like that. I just maybe approach everyday life situations as far as like I said, a scratch off or, an opportunity. I'll apply for a job and be like, you ain't about to get that. But then when I get that email back, I'm like, yeah, I knew I was about to get it. Like it's just my process.
See, I'm like totally different. Like I go into it believing that it's gonna work out.
Okay.
150%. like this lottery ticket was for me, and I'm about to scratch this bad boy, and I'm gonna win something.
Do you ever experience
Um,
disappointment with things like that though? Like when you do go into it 150 and then it just like is nothing and you're like, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
okay,
You know what I'm
okay.
saying? Okay, for instance, when I moved from Louisville to Coral Springs, right?
Hmm.
So I had a job offer. I'm like, all right, bet I'm vacationing out from LMPD. I'm moving to Coral Springs, about to get hired on another police department. You know, and again, going 150%. I sold everything in the apartment that was big, only took what could fit in my
Go back up.
Challenger, and drove out. Picked up my boy
You and
Chancellor
your
at
dog.
3 a.m. Huh?
You and your dog is the only thing that can fit in that Challenger. I'm just, I'm just,
Nah, hey, I fit a whole closet in there. So, I spent a lot of time packing trucks at GFS and FedEx, so I know how to pack some stuff. But so I came down here, and a week before I was supposed to get hired on, they rescinded the job offer,
remember.
right? And so that was huge. That was like if you could think of like just the air coming out of like one of the little wacky inflatable men, and
Yeah,
just the body just slowing down, like time slowed down. Like I
yeah,
felt like I couldn't hear anything because I was literally like, oh
yeah,
shit,
yeah,
hold on, I'm in a whole new place.
yeah.
I'm unemployed, and now there's no new money coming in, right? So you got to make a decision here. So am I going to stay in like this state of despair,
Hmm.
or am I about to take all my skills and get busy? And so I committed to getting busy,
Yeah.
which wound up applying to like 30 different police departments. I mean, I was doing testing all over the place.
Hmm.
I was still following through with the teaching stuff for U of L. And then I was also contacting them to get more teaching roles. That's how I landed the role with the Southern Police Institute. I was applying to like all the colleges in the
Oh,
area. I was turning up.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
You was, you was.
so, but that's not to say that there were not really low moments where I
Yeah,
was just really disappointed and frustrated
yeah.
by the process. Um, but every time, even now when I do the podcast, when I was just doing the audio version,
Hmm.
like today, you got to see my process, right? So I
That's
I start
so
out by
cool.
playing my intro, and that like gets me going.
It was like the Rocky music, y'all. He like ran up the steps.
Yeah, and so like anytime I was showing up for my interviews, my testing process, whatever, um, every day it was fresh, and I would go in, I'd be like, man, I'm about to tear this up, about to
Yeah.
get this job. And in some places, I knew right there that I didn't get the job. Other places, I had to wait on another email to find out I didn't get the job.
Hmm.
So I had gotten so like accustomed to getting these rejection emails that they didn't even bother me anymore. I was like, okay, great. That's one less place that I got to keep driving to for testing, because
True.
this is getting me one step closer to the agency that is going to hire me. And, 10 months later, now I've been hired on. I'm finishing up the onboarding process to go into field training. Thank you.
I love to cheer you
And
on.
yes, and they knew that they were going to hire me from my first interview with the panel, but it
Hmm.
was because I knew, one, I know about police work. I know why I got into policing, um, and I knew what I can provide to this agency, and I know what this agency can provide for me. So there was just a really good fit there. But if I had went into it with like my initial mindset was I didn't even want to go to the interview, right? I was just ready to come back to Louisville Metro. I was
Yes,
tired
you
of doing these
was.
processes. Um, and part of it is because you got to keep proving yourself to people, because
Yeah.
this is like nobody down here knows me. So,
Y'all, he's telling the truth. I was actually with him throughout this whole process,
yes.
honestly. So he's telling the truth about this. He went ham and cheese. He was playing no games with none of these people. Real.
Yeah.
Continue.
And so I called my mom and my cousin, and I was like, y'all, listen, I really don't even feel like going to this interview because the process still takes like 4 months.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm just ready to come home. And look, I can go back to Metro. In like another year or so, I can take my sergeant's test. I already know how much money I can make there.
Hmm.
So I was ready. So that like, if you've been told no 29 times, what's one more time? You still have time, right?
Yes.
So I went to the interview, and thankfully, they talked me into going, and I decided to go, and I still commanded the room during the interview
Hmm.
process, because that's the door that ended up working out. So, um, you know, when I experience self-rejection, it is usually because I've already given it my all, or what I
Right.
think is my all, which goes back to us talking about the dry place.
Yeah.
So you get into this rut and you feel like you've given it everything you got, and then you're like, dang, that was my best, and that's not enough. Like, what more do you want from me?
You, let me ask you this,
What's up?
because I think I may suffer from something, but I don't know
Hmm.
the correct definition. So I want to know if you're familiar with imposter syndrome.
Yeah, that's actually on the list to talk about today.
Is that where I seen that? Okay, I did. Okay, okay. So let me just ask you this. So as far as
Okay.
imposter syndrome,
Hmm.
what I think that means
Hmm.
is even you just don't believe you deserve what is for you in a sense. Like for me, um, I'm humbly speaking, I
Hmm.
know for a fact that I would be one of the dopest comedians out there. Like if I
Hmm.
actually went out, got on somebody's stage, did but self rejection,
Hmm.
imposter syndrome. I think that for me, I think I don't I really don't know how I guess I'm experiencing a bunch of like just me trying to narrow down on one example because I feel like I do experience imposter syndrome in a lot of situations, even when it comes to
Hmm.
applying for a job or getting in there and being like, well, how the hell I get in here? Or
Hmm.
a lot of times I won't even like give my all because I think somebody else who is way less talented than me will secure this. Like it's
Hmm.
really like honestly, that self-rejection thing ain't no joke. For real. It plays
Hmm.
out in so many different forms, whether it be I was gonna say like using the bathroom, but like you don't self-reject you reject
No,
something
you
in the
don't.
bathroom. You know what I'm saying? Like it just plays out in everyday life situations for
Yeah.
people like me
Yeah.
anyway. Especially people who are in front of the camera and
Hmm.
experience rejection on a bigger level than just like getting rejected by your dude or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Ooh, you really you
Yeah.
I purposely missed two auditions to be on an improv show.
Okay.
Although I feel like I was gonna go in there and shut it down, I purposely missed it because I felt like I don't know. I don't know, friend. I
Okay.
miss opportunities on purpose
Okay.
because I
So
feel like
let's
I'm not supposed to be there because other people I don't know.
okay. So that's perfect. So like the way that I have this particular show set up, it doesn't really matter what order we go in when it
Hmm.
comes to the topics because it's all about self rejection, right?
Right.
So let's focus on imposter syndrome, right? So
Okay.
that is an internal experience where you believe that you are not as competent as other people perceive you to be. So how you talk about questioning how you ended up in this room or in this position, like with a job or something, right? It's a good position. You're in the right room with the right crowd, but you're like, dang, like, man, am I as funny as you all? Like, should I be here? So it's funny you talk about that
When
because
people
I was
call me
actually
funny, I'll be
listening.
like, what?
Yeah, I was actually listening to something where a company put up a high paying job and then a minimum wage job.
Mm-hmm.
And they only got like two or three applications for the high paying job for that position, but they got a ton of applications for the low paying job. and the low paying job received a bunch of applications from people who actually qualified for the high paying position. But when they interviewed them, they didn't believe that they had the skill set or the competency to fulfill the requirements of this high paying position. So they, instead of trying to attain the knowledge or even just showing up for the interview for the high paying
Right.
job, they would rather settle for this lower paying job.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they say like the air is thinner at the top, because in order to expose yourself and put yourself out there, it requires you to go beyond your own like mental capacity,
Mm-hmm.
overload it. And okay, yeah, we can hop into this. So
My bad. I probably just messed up your whole little.
no, you're fine, you're fine. So when you are in a state of self-rejection, right? This is what you do. This is how it's manifesting in life. You slow down on your decision making, and you do start to feel more overwhelmed because you keep adding things to your plate. And it's because you're not making any decisions whatsoever. Well, I take it back. You are making a decision. You're making a decision to stay stagnant. That's still a decision. But then that decision is bothering you because you know you deserve better. But what is happening is your mind, your nervous system is causing you to experience self-rejection because it's trying to keep you in this imaginary safe space. Your body is trying to protect you. Because when you step out on faith, when you step out on a ledge, that is a huge risk. Moving to Florida, big risk. Moving to Arizona, big risk. Developing a YouTube channel, huge risk, right? Because people can see your face,
Yeah.
talk about you. Anytime that you want to expand and enlarge your territory and expand your capacity to receive things, you are literally in a fight with your nervous system, because your brain, your body is doing what it thinks it's supposed to do, what it's been honed to do. It's trying to keep you safe. Yeah. And like the first time that you probably recorded a video, you probably had like a slight adrenaline rush, because you was like, oh my God,
I
and
was
that's just
sweating before I got on here with you.
see, and so your body is trying to protect you and slow you down and be like, hey, listen, I don't know what you're trying to do out there, but you putting us in danger. Can you just get back to what we know? And so that's where we talk about people staying in uncomfortable situations
Mhm.
because
Ooh,
they're familiar. Um, so let me wrap up imposter syndrome for you. So there's 5 types that primarily
self-rejection,
present
real quick.
themselves.
I just want to let
Yes.
y'all know this real quick. Speaking of self-rejection, I the reason I was sweating before I got on here with him is, y'all, I don't ever want to be the ugly one. So I done scrubbed my face down. I'm shining. I done put all kind of motor oil and shit on my damn head. Cause my thing is, I didn't want to get on here and be the ugly one. So I done already rejected myself, thinking that y'all gonna be on here looking at his cute ass and ain't gonna want to look at me. So all right, now go ahead.
So imposter syndrome, right? There's 5, really like 5 primary ones that show up.
Okay.
So the first one is like, it's like the superhero version, and it's where this person overworks themselves to make up for how inadequate they are.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is like, what's up?
No, I'm saying like, ooh, that was
Yeah, the second one is the natural genius. And this person sets exceedingly high goals, but then they feel crushed when they don't meet them. The next one is the expert. This person is never satisfied with their level of understanding. They're always trying to learn more. And then you have the perfectionist. They're just never completely happy with their work. And they're only fixated on the flaws instead of the strengths. And then the last one is the soloist. They prefer working alone, and they don't ask for help because they fear appearing weak or incompetent to people around them. So those are like the primary 5 ways that imposter syndrome shows up. And you can have one, some, or all.
I was about to ask. I was like, I got a couple of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like sometimes what people do is to avoid basically like to avoid dealing with this
Mm-hmm.
is they will overwork themselves until they experience burnout. But then when they experience burnout, their productivity fails. And then when their productivity fails, now they slip into a depression because, oh my God, see, it's true, I suck.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Being a
yeah,
creator, I can 100% agree, like identify with that 100%.
yeah. And then for you, we were talking about not going to the improv auditions, right? So you enjoy comedy, you are aligning yourself to be a comedian. So it's like bang, bang, bang. And then at the last second, you're like, oh no, I'm gonna shut this door
Yes.
because I don't know. Maybe I haven't been to any classes, haven't taken any courses, I haven't done
I don't feel like
anything
I need
else.
them, but I feel like once it's right there, I'm like, because I feel like that's kind of like what it's almost like when you're trying to. I don't want to fail at what I'm supposed to be good at.
Well, that's crazy thinking because you got to fail at what you're supposed to be good at.
Okay. I need to see. I need to hear people tell me stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's why it's good to talk to your friends. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So fear of failure causes you to be stagnant. But when you're not afraid to fail, you are invincible, right? So let's look at it like this. You show up for improv and you do horrible.
Mm-hmm.
You're nowhere near as funny as you thought you were. That's fine. Okay, great. Because there are resources available to me to help me develop myself. And somebody there can connect you through their network to these resources. That's perfect. I've walked through the door, I shut the door myself, I'm sitting at the table now. So it's really about going back to being your own gardener. It's about planting those seeds and then nourishing yourself. Um, it is okay to be afraid of failure, right? Because failure is uncomfortable. It can cost us money. It can cost us time. But we're failing forward, as Denzel Washington says. We're failing forward. Yeah. And so then when you pick yourself up and you start over again, you're not starting from scratch. You're not like rebuilding from ground zero. You are now rebuilding with this prior knowledge. And so that's still going to help you get further the next time. I think when they were talking about Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison, one of them, when they were creating the light bulb, they failed 10,000 times. And it was the 10,001st try where the light bulb turns on, right? So this light that we use to see, somebody had to make it over 10,000 times for it to be right. So can you imagine how much glass and filaments and stuff he used 10,000 times, and all
a lot of money into that, I'm sure.
Yeah, and having to keep going back, changing the formulas and all that stuff. And they were like, why do you keep trying to make a light bulb? Like, you're an idiot. It's never going to work. And then he gets this light bulb, and now it's everywhere. Yes. You've revolutionized what people can do with their day.
That's a good point. That's a really good point, actually.
Yeah. So fail forward and fail often.
But try to fail as least as possible. Like, make sure you put your all into it when you do it. If you fail, it's okay, but don't go into it trying to fail.
Well, no, you're not entering into it trying to fail. You expect for it to work out.
Yeah.
But we say fail often because if you limit how many times you can fail, then once you hit that limit, you'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is not working out for me. So
I heard somebody once say, they said, if I failed 100 times, I can show you. Hold on, if I didn't get it right until the 100th time, I can show you 99 ways not to do it.
Absolutely.
Like, honestly, and so I do understand that, because I am the type of person that if something does happen to me, which is how we hit that self-rejection thing again, it's full circle. When something does happen to me, my body says that will never happen to you again. So even if I were to go and blow an audition or blow a comedy show, he would do one of two things. I would never do it again to protect myself from failing that again, or I would get off that stage and go hard to learn everything I had to learn.
Yeah,
So
our brain is
I'm a fight or flight kind of person.
okay. Okay, good. So listen, when you go, which you should already write this down on your
Mhm.
calendar to complete at least one audition
Okay.
2022,
Okay.
right? So
Vision board.
when you set goals, you have to put a date on the goal. If you don't put a date, then you just keep pushing it off. So you got to put a date on there because that gives you something to work towards.
Okay.
Um, so
So December
when
31st, 2022.
okay,
Last
there
day.
you go. So by December 31st, 2022, I will have completed one improv or at least one improv audition.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
See,
We
so
should have a
that's
vision
a
board party.
okay.
It'd be fun.
Yeah. See, so that's a manageable goal that you can set for yourself, and it gives you time to develop your craft. Now,
Mhm.
I would say probably do it sometime earlier this
Yeah.
year because whatever the outcome is from it, you want to be able to assess it and make whatever corrections you need so that 2023 you could do two improv auditions or three or
Yeah.
appear on a comedy sketch TV show or something, something like that.
You hear what I
So,
said as far as I was like a year? That literally goes back to the very first thing I said when we started filming earlier today, and how I
mhm,
kept pushing my YouTube channel back, which kept
mhm,
making me be however many years less experienced than what I would be had I just went out there and did it. I could have
mhm.
so much more experience right now
Yeah,
just based off me knowing what my passion is. Being scared,
yeah.
it's crazy. How are you scared of your passion? Um,
Yeah. Well, because it's stressful, right?
yeah,
It's stressful because not only like you want to see yourself be great, but also it's like kind of intimidating sometimes because
yeah.
you know how expansive you can get.
And coming
So,
from the place where I come from, like we're both from
mhm,
Kentucky, but I'm from Lexington. And I'll say that to me, Louisville has a way more artistic
mhm,
scene than Lexington does. So
mhm,
where I'm from, I'm not used to being encouraged to do
mhm,
what it is that I like to do. I'm encouraged to work a 9 to 5. I'm encouraged to
mhm.
make sure that your bills is paid. When you want to be a singer, or no, I'm gonna say this, and this is just in general. When you're a singer or a rapper or something like that, or a dancer, those two forms of artistry typically get put on a pedestal above people who do comedy or stuff like that. You're not
Mhm.
People aren't used to people where I'm from getting opportunities or being famous or being on camera, or so nobody there's a lot of people that think I'm crazy for what I'm doing, and there's a lot of people that think I'm gonna fail with what I'm doing. And so for me at this
Mhm.
point, even if I am uncomfortable with everything, I have to keep failing forward. I have to. I'd rather
Mhm.
fail at I'd rather keep failing on a different level. You know what I'm saying? I'd rather
Yeah.
fail up here than fail up here, instead of just like keep failing at the same thing. I'm gonna keep building myself up. That way, listen,
Yeah.
I,
No,
I
that's so we're going to hit on that in the resolution portion. But that's literally how you get out of this
mhm,
because every time you transition to a new level, there is, like you said, there's a new dry place that's associated with that, right? That's going to bring up all your old like senses of
right,
rejection and failure and your fears. And so you have to constantly keep reminding yourself, excuse my language, but how fucking great I am, right? So like before I would go into any of my interviews, my last interview, this guy was walking by. He was like, "You nervous?" And I was like, "Absolutely not." And he was like, "Good. That's the answer that I'm looking for."
all right,
But that's truthfully what I believe. Like,
yeah,
no, I'm not nervous. Like, I've been through a lot of interviews. I've done like 40, 50 some interviews this year alone in the
yeah,
last 10 months. Like, I should be on the interview panel,
yeah,
you know? And so,
you should actually.
so that's the mindset that you have to have
Yeah.
is, okay, so I made it through this and all right, no problem. I failed here. Great. I took my notes. I wrote down my strengths. I wrote down my weaknesses. I looked at ways for improvement, and then we're going to get back at it and we're going to try it again. You know?
Honestly, it makes me feel just a little better about my sense of fear to do certain things. Not better, but
Mhm.
I think just at what in I think everybody has anxiety, but I think
Mhm.
in the entertainment industry, every person who I've ever looked up to, every person who I've ever heard speak about it says they are a nervous wreck
Mhm.
before they get on the stage
Yeah, that's
and then
normal.
get out there and kill it. Just like I told you, I
Mhm.
was sweating in here when I was, but then like it's performer's anxiety.
Mhm.
Because listen, there's nothing that I can't do. There's nothing that I will try that I can't do.
Yeah,
I just got to get past that
the initial anxiety of
throwing up before I get on that stage.
it.
They're gonna have to take me out on the stretcher or something. I've been done passed out. Help me. Okay.
Yeah, and that's part of it because everybody's focused on you,
Yeah.
right? If you're in entertainment, everybody's focused on you, and then you start thinking like, oh, if I do one wrong thing, like this is just gonna be horrible, right? Earlier, I had to clear my throat, and they say in the podcast thing like you want to try not to clear your throat. Well, no, because
Mm.
I'm a fucking person and I need to clear my throat, and
And that's
somebody listening to
kind
this
of
or
like
watching
Kermit the
this.
Frog.
Yeah, and like somebody listening to this or watching this is probably gonna have to clear their throat at some time during the day, and that's like a normal thing. And like I wouldn't edit that out, right? Because that's normal. And that's the thing about social media is a lot of times people are editing out all of their flaws because you're
Yes.
only seeing like a moment in time when
Hmm.
something is good, right? And that's why you can't base how you should feel or anything like that off of somebody else's temporary presentation of themselves, right? Because
Agree.
I know a lot of people on social media who are living like great lives. They've taken all the trips. They have all the money. They may even have all the money, but they're taking all the trips and they're doing all the stuff. But they're lonely and they're miserable and they're depressed and
And they're
they're
sleeping on
sad.
somebody's bed, couch.
Yes, they don't have nearly half of the exposure to just life
Yeah.
that we have between the two of us, and so I never look at what somebody else is doing on social media and
Hmm.
get uh, envious of them in a sense of, oh man, I like what they have and I want it for myself too.
Hmm.
No, because I don't know how you got that. I don't know, you could be out here scamming. I don't know.
True. Because typically,
you
that's
know,
what I said. They
or
be on these trips.
yeah,
They be posting their food, but they don't show the sugar daddy in that picture.
yeah,
You lift that camera up just a little bit, guess who's gonna be sitting at that restaurant with them?
yeah. Or you got there, like you said, with Trick Daddy, you got there on the back of
Yeah,
somebody else.
yeah.
So it's not even an authentic thing for you because without this person, you wouldn't be in that space.
I I,
So
I do kind of. I've been hearing so many influencers and stuff say this, and it irritated my soul because they'd be like, well, "How'd you get popping? How'd you do this? How'd you do that?" And they just be like, "Because I'm myself." And I'll be like, God, "That's the most generic answer I've ever heard in my life." However,
mhm,
I'm pretty sure you know me, friend. There's not really a lot that I keep to myself. Like I ain't putting
mhm,
nobody's business out, nothing like that. But like I get on with all of my vulnerabilities and stuff like that. So I think
mhm.
that actually is what is keeping people they growing up with me at this point.
Yeah, yeah. Well, people actually like the transparency. Like more
Yeah.
people want to be able to be transparent and want to be able to be
Mhm.
authentic, but they don't have that safe space,
Right.
and they're in negative social circles. And
Yes.
when you're in those negative social circles, usually it's a group of people or two persons that have engaged in a relationship based on shared trauma. And, you can't even get out of the cycle because the only thing y'all talk about is the trauma. Like, and it's almost like it's a competition. Like, oh my God, my man did this. My mama did this to me. Oh girl, my mama did this to me too. You know,
oh
or
girl,
like,
my mama ran over me while she had my boyfriend in the front seat with her. You know,
yeah, you know. So it's like it's this competition of trauma.
Yeah.
And then you'll see like once one person starts to go on this journey of healing, then they want to bring their shared trauma buddy along, and the buddy is like, no, like
Right.
I like what we got going on. Like I want to stay in the negative cycle. Like the negative space is the safe space. So
And
let's
since you
stay
ain't
here.
building me up, you ain't nothing but a weight around my neck.
Yeah. So rounding this out so we can get to the resolutions, right? Because the people want to know how can they help themselves to get out of this, right? So
Paint, unless you go to Coach Clayton. You ain't gonna be able to help yourself. Go to him so he can help you.
right? What he said. So the last thing is that like maybe life has discouraged you in the past, right? And so I go back to this paralysis by analysis, and it's a state of overthinking or overanalyzing any circumstances so that a decision or action it gets too much and it becomes delayed, and then you never take action because paralysis is the only outcome. So, could you hear that plane?
I think everybody heard that plane. This ain't even live yet, and people who ain't even watched it heard that.
Yeah, you can keep it in
Y'all been close
because
to the airport? That sounds really low. Like it sounds like the plane is really low over your house. That's the second plane I've heard since we've been talking.
well, it's only like 30 minutes or so to Fort Lauderdale. So yeah,
A plane.
they're starting to come down.
Yeah, a plane will get there in 2 seconds. So yeah, it's probably
Yeah,
starting to come down right over your house. Oh, I'd be like,
yeah.
I would lose my mind if I heard that in the middle of the night.
Well, we had a guest over. They came in town from Kentucky, so I'm actually recording this episode in the garage to accommodate, the
Yeah,
guests. But I wanted to make sure we got this done
yeah.
for the first episode on the first day of the new year
Yes.
to get people rocking and rolling. So
Proud of you.
okay, paralysis by analysis, so we can get this thing wrapped up. It usually comes about because you tried to step out on faith before and you failed, and now you fear future failures. So when you get presented with an opportunity to grow, you start thinking about it too much.
Mm-hmm.
You just think about it too much. And there is like a point where you got to analyze something, right? Like when I was looking between the different police departments I was applying to, I had to look at like, okay, what agency size, what are their benefits, what do their contracts look like, what kind of insurance do they have? But you can't like sit and think about it too long because then you just never make a decision.
Somebody else come in and take it.
Yeah, and it's the same like when you get into a relationship with somebody, you get like 6 months to really decide like if this is what you want to do. By that time, you need to have a decision made. Are we going to continue to get serious, or are we just going to like part ways? But if you stay in that analysis stage too long, next thing you know, it'll be like 3 years and y'all done moved in and y'all got a kid and a dog and bills together, and y'all in debt together, and it's because you stayed in the analysis phase too long, and now you done woke up and you're like, whoa, whose life am I living?
Yes.
So
you end up being in a long-term relationship by default just because you stayed in the analysis phase too long.
Yes. So, all right, the resolutions here. Okay. And we can dig into these, but I'm gonna give them to you short, and then we can dig into them if you choose to. So, step number one is you got to call it out. You got to call it for what it is, right? I practice self-rejection. Then you have to identify how it shows up in your life. So, in what ways do I self-reject? Is it like when my partner says something that I find disrespectful and I choose not to say something because I'm fearful of what the outcome could be?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it there's a promotion that I know I deserve at work, but I don't think I can beat out these other people to get it, so I'm not going to put in for it. Right. So you just Rejecting you are telling yourself no instead of allowing the other person to tell you no. The other thing is you have to start working with the easiest way that it shows up first, and then you build from there. Right. So we keep going back to this concept of being your own gardener.
Mm-hmm.
When you are gardening and you are planting seeds, you really want to find like the path of least resistance. So, like I just recently repotted my snake plants, and I'm gonna repot those again once they keep growing.
Mm-hmm.
But I found I took they call them the kids, like the adolescents or whatever, because there's a mom and she keeps producing.
Yeah.
But I took the kids that were the easiest to remove. Like I don't want to get in her and fight with her.
They mess up the roots.
Yeah, I want to take the easiest one and replant it and nurture it and let it grow. So you got to do the same thing with like when you find yourself doing self-rejection. You don't want to try to start too big because then you'll become overwhelmed and then you just won't want to do it at all. Other thing is,
and they said about credit, pay off your small debt first, then go to the large ones. Go ahead.
Yes, the snowball effect.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and then you want to celebrate your small victories. So when you practice celebrating your small victories, that really helps you to learn how to celebrate yourself. And then when that small voice starts to creep in, you got to be able to challenge it. And again, this is going to happen every time you get ready to do something new, something bigger, something better. That small voice is going to pop up and ask you the questions, the whys, that tell you that you're a failure, that it didn't work out in the past, and you got to challenge that, and then you have to execute and move with a sense of urgency. You got to get to the business and be about the business. And so the last thing is you have to confront it to break the cycle of it. That's it. You have to confront it to break the cycle of it. If you never confront your self-rejecting behaviors, you'll always just self-reject and you'll never move up unless everything is given to you. But even then, imposter syndrome, oh my God, I didn't earn this. Right. So that was our episode on self-rejection.
It's almost like the accountability thing. Like if you can't admit it to yourself, you'll never grow. Like if you can't admit that you did something wrong, you will never grow from that perspective. So all of that, listen, friend, you don't understand, but y'all got to book y'all's session through his link in his bio.
I think you just got a free life coaching session, basically.
I surely did. Really did. And I got some notes over here. He sent me an email, so guess what?
All right. Well, Keith, I appreciate you so much for choosing and accepting and coming in and do this with me. Like you really helped bring this episode to life, and you gave some fresh perspectives on that. So I had a good time being a part of this and having the Keith Chronicles back to help me out.
Y'all heard him say it. Oh my God. Oh, He said it. All right. Sorry. Proceed.
All right. Well, everybody, this was the episode on self-rejection. And again, you've heard from my good friend Keith. And I really feel like he brought this episode to life. So stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of fresh content coming out for this year. I'm so excited to keep dropping all of this relatable material. So make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And then you can also find Keith's YouTube channel on YouTube at
The Keith Chronicles.
All right, so that concludes the episode. Be sure to DM me and let me know what other things that you would like for me to discuss or research, and I'm going to see how I can fit all this good stuff in. So until next time, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and take care. Thank you.